Welcome back. All right, I want to talk about last night Rick and Morty season finale. I want to start with that. Um, it was it was an interesting season. So I watched a film theory where they were talking about where Matt Pat was talking about his theories on what was going on and Beth and whether or not Beth might not be alive anymore. And I think that in the conclusion of this that yeah Beth's still alive, but it's odd, they try to make it so that Rick is human, right? He's human. He's got his flaws, and they make him relatable, but they don't ever really make him truly good. Not really. And there's always that doubt in the back of your mind about Rick, and I don't think last night's episode did a lot to dispel that. I did like the two crows. I did. I thought that was actually kind of a fun thing. So if you haven't watched the season finale yet, I highly recommend it before you watch this video. Um, the season finale really sets up. The thing is, they've destroyed the Citadel of Ricks before. So when I see the Citadel being blown up, I go, they'll bring it back. And that's kind of how I see it. There's an infinite number of Ricks. There's an infinite number of Mortys. You can blow up as many of them as you want. It did reveal that the Citadel was basically a plant for churning out Mortys because Ricks burn out Mortys and they have to get a new Morty. And so they have infinite universes where they have Beth and Jerry fall in love with each other so they can create more Mortys for themselves, right? And it's a different concept. I do wonder how they're gonna make changes for next season. There were episodes this year I had a hard time getting through. Not gonna lie, it was tough. That's why I haven't been doing episode by episode reviews on here, because yeah, there have been some episodes that were tough to get through. Or at the end, I thought, what was the point of that? Which is okay sometimes, but when you're over halfway through a season and you're like, I'm not sure that anything's changed. I'm not sure anything's actually happened yet. That's not a great sign. You'll notice that there's some Legends of Tomorrow pictures. There's Jess McCallan's right behind there. Katie Lotz is here, as well as Tala Ash. I will be discussing Legends in this video as well because both of them had their season finales last night. So I'm watching AEW, and meanwhile my PVR is recording all this other stuff for me to watch and talk about with all you fine people. And then I also have to do a movie review in its own time for He's All That, which requires its own video and its own discussion of this is what can go wrong. But if you haven't watched it, it's basically a tire fire of a movie with a lot of branding in it. But coming back to Rick and Morty, which sometimes has a lot of branding in it as well, I'm not sure how much. So the evil Morty goes into the black hole or into another universe, wherever he went to. And you have to think that to start season 6, Rick and Morty should just probably be at home. Should just be normally at home. The one thing is, I do think that they may play it up that Rick cares more about Morty next season, either because he has learned he needs him as a sidekick and is more than a sidekick than as a partner, or he may play it that way because he doesn't have the Citadel to go to get another Morty in case this one dies. And this could go really dark, or it could go really kind of abstract, or it could do both, right? You could have like a reveal that this is like his 15th or 20th Morty, and he just thinks he's with his Rick when he's not, right? We've already seen them switch universes after they Cronenberged their own universe and take over in a universe where Rick and Morty have died. So there's already been some dark stuff in there, and they could definitely revisit that again. I did think that the season finale kind of gets the show back on track, which led me to think, okay, wait, so do they have too many episodes? Do they have a plan to get through to season 10, and part of that plan is just going to be, well, we're going to do some episodes that nothing really happens because the order of episodes we have is too much. I don't know the answer to that. It definitely feels like, though, some of the stuff that went on this past season was filler. Absolutely. So last night when I saw that it was back-to-backs, and that it was, to wrap up the season. I was honestly kind of surprised that they did it back to back, although they work well as a two-parter. Which, again, Rick and Morty doesn't rely on the two-parters that often. This year, for instance, is very episodic in general. And again, some of the episodes have felt like were kind of throwaways. You can let me know in the comment section below if you felt the same way. But I'm optimistic about season 6 that maybe we'll get into more building on the lore of the show and talking about what's changed and how things have changed. Because we don't always get that with Rick and Morty, because they do have the one-offs, so you can watch them in whatever order. But there were some good ones as well. The episode with him and Bird Person was great, and it really led into the finale, and you see Rick's backstory, which I think was important. I think getting more into Rick's backstory and who he is, which takes some of the mystery out of it a little bit, and it destroys so many fan theories. There was a fan theory not that long ago that Rick and Morty were actually the same person, and that that's why he's protective of Morty, that they're, Rick's just an older version of Morty, which, again, by now we can see that's not very likely to be the end, but I'm saying not very likely because I just don't know. I don't know where the series ends. I don't know how the series ends. I would be interested to see a movie with Rick and Morty. A full 2 hours of Rick and Morty, I think, would be entertaining. And maybe at some point in time they do a live action episode. We haven't seen that yet, but at some point, maybe. Right? Where they break their universe and all of a sudden they're real and all this. So there's a lot of ways that the show could go. I think that the finale was well done. The 2-part finale was well done. And so it's brought back some of my enthusiasm for the show. I still watched every episode this year. My enthusiasm definitely dipped a bit during the season, though. Speaking of which, and there's a reason that I'm going to talk about Legends of Tomorrow in the same video that I'm talking about Rick and Morty, because Legends, kind of the same thing. So Legends this year decided we're going to bring in aliens. And it was just as weird as you might expect that to be. And I didn't think that a lot of the things that happened this season worked. We've definitely got a cast that is getting a little big. We've got characters that don't seem to have a lot to do. And I think it hurt the show this year. I think that they need to get back to basics. There needs to be your standard, okay, so time's broken kind of thing. Now, the way that they ended the season, and again, if you haven't watched it, I recommend you watch it. I thought the season finale was better than what came before it. I think what hurt this season, I didn't like Bishop. I thought Bishop as a villain was rather weak. And I didn't like the whole Sarah's half alien, which wasn't addressed. It just means you can shoot her and she heals. Which, I really think they need to... The whole Sarah's half alien... The original Sarah's dead. Like, they don't really get into that. And I'm like, okay, what? And, yeah, there was other things, too. Like, Bayrod needs to not just be a stoner. Like, here's an idea. There are people who get stoned that actually don't have that play as their main personality trait. That's just something they do. They might need to relax at the end of the day. They might be stressed. They might need something to take the edge off. That's not who they are. And with Bayrod, it really feels like that's who he is. It doesn't help either that the totem and the power that he has is exactly the same as Zari's. And since Zari's on the team too, they have the same power. And the fact that Zari 1.0 just duplicated the totem just because she felt like it, and they never... seem to show any kind of surprise at that. It's disappointing. There's so many missed opportunities. Spooner, I grew to like her as a character. Couldn't stand her in the beginning. Grew to like her as the season went along. But I'm stuck as to why Astra's still on the team. I am absolutely stuck as to why Astra's still... And I like the actress. I'm okay with the character, but I'm not sure why she's still there. Now, Constantine's been written out, so he's gone. And I didn't really like the way they wrote him out, but okay, fine, whatever. Like, they have this, like, he has this realization, and I'm off I go, and it's like, come on, just, this is ridiculous. But they wrote Constantine out. HBO Max is going to do a Constantine series now. There's a new actor playing the role. And so the same actor that plays Constantine is also going to have a new character in next season where they're stranded in the 1920s. I don't understand. And of course, there was the Wave Rider came in and blew up the Wave Rider in the past. So that's going to be them somehow. It's like a Doctor Who thing where something happens, you go, how did that happen? And then later on, we'll find out exactly how it happened. But for me, it was the whole season was kind of a miss. And last night's episode, what drove me nuts was when you have Kayla, who's an alien, fighting off all these aliens, so that the double captains can get married. I was like, okay, seriously, who in their right mind, while there's aliens trying to kill everybody, is going to decide now's a good time to get married, rather than trying to barricade the windows? Let's get married now. Just imagine that in a zombie movie. There's hordes of zombies coming in the door, and they're like, let's go get married. We'll leave one person to mind the windows and the door, and we're just going to go quickly in and have a wedding, even though we could die in 5 minutes, because then we got married before we died. Anyways, and then they Doctor Who'd it, because the power of love seemed to make the fountain work, and that zapped all the aliens, and I was like, okay, are we using love to fix this season's big bad? We are? Okay, so Doctor Who it is then. Especially during the David Tennant era, there were a number of times during the David Tennant era of Doctor Who where I was left incredulous. Like, wait, love fix how this? There's no love doesn't have a tangible effect on aliens, so I'm not sure how. And so I was feeling this again last night watching Legends of Tomorrow, where I felt like, wow, so love fixed that, huh? I don't think that's the way that works. I don't. No. And then they had a younger version of Bishop, and he could have followed down a different path, and they went, nope, you're just going to be a bad guy. And then they zapped him to memory wipe him and sent him back. But he saw Ava before they sent him back, so he knows Ava works and exists, and then it was. The whole Bishop thing didn't necessarily work for me all season. I'm not sure the Kayla thing worked all that much. The alien babies end up hatching, and then they consume whoever they see first, which was never communicated when they were carrying the eggs around. And all I could think was, so on the Wave Rider, they would have hatched, and if there wasn't a bad guy around, they just would have eaten one of the members of the crew. Really? And then they have them eat the villain, and then they're cute. And they as Yvonne and I came up with, they're octopos. So, again, and it's a Doctor Who tie-in. The adipose, these little animals that are basically fat. They're just made of fat, and they're these cute little baby things. And they get beamed up into space, and they're all these babies, and they're all cute. And it felt like these little octopus alien things, they were like this big, and they're kind of big eyes and everything. I was like, so they're like the adipose, but again, they were like octopus, so they were, as we said, the octopus. I don't know that worked for me either, because again, so if they hatched on the Wave Rider, that would have been a disaster. They would have just eaten whoever. So Nate could have walked in and they just eat Nate, and then they're fine after. That's it. And of course, there's no blood or anything because they're trying to keep it PG. But it's just it was a bizarre ending. And again, I watched that bizarre ending, and then I watched Rick and Morty, where Rick and Morty had this season that sort of dipped, and then I thought they sort of saved it at the end. And Legends has always been, I think, the best of the CW shows in that it's creative, it's different. It doesn't fall into a lot of the same tropes that CW shows do. I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube lately on CW shows and the criticism of them. And they're right. They're absolutely right about Flash, Riverdale. A lot of these shows, there's a lot of videos. And I haven't watched Riverdale. However, I've heard these criticisms from other people, and they match up with other CW shows and some of the storylines they fall into and some of the ridiculousness that happens there. So, and at some point I may try Riverdale, but I'm no guarantees on that, none. But I'm looking forward to Legends next year not being about aliens. I'm looking forward to Legends next year without Mick. Um, the way they wrote Mick out was weird, but I guess he always wanted to fall in love with an alien. If you've watched the show long enough, you know that's what he was writing stories about. Was about alien women, and he had this fantasy. So ending up with an alien woman is on brand for his character. And who knows? Maybe all those babies grow up, and who knows what happens there. But it was a bizarre way to say goodbye to Constantine. It was a bizarre way to say goodbye to Mick, who died in the last episode. I am sorry. The way that they showed the explosion last week, Mick died. He was in that explosion. He was in the fire. And this week, magically, he wasn't. And I was like, okay, that, no. No, just no. Also, next year, apparently, the actress who does the voice for the ship, for the Wave Rider, Gideon will be a character in, flesh and bone kind of character. And that reminds me of Andromeda, which is weird because the idea of them being stranded and without their ship to start the season reminds me of the fifth season of Andromeda, which was a show I liked a lot. So maybe they can do that. And I was one of the few that really liked the fifth season of Andromeda. A lot of people complained because there wasn't a ship, they weren't in space, and they were trapped on a planet. But I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it was different. And so hopefully Legends does something different next season. But let me know your thoughts if you watched either the Rick and Morty season finale or the season finale of Legends. And let me know what you thought of them, either separately, collectively. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.